So do you think these changes they've announced really aren't changes at all? Is that
No,
what I mean?
they are
Okay.
not material. So the doors are not suddenly going to open, and people who were declined last month will be approved this month.
Hi, I'm Craig Wilson. You've quite likely heard that some changes have just come into effect to the rules around lending. And if you're a borrower or looking to become a borrower, what does that mean for you? Well, to help explain it all, I'm joined in the studio today by Senior Advisor from Simply Finance, Jonathan Watts. Hey, Jonathan, welcome back.
Nice to be back.
Yeah, thank you. What are the new rules?
Well, it sounds exciting, doesn't it? And it sounds like things might be changing, but unfortunately not. And to quote one of the banks who have actually put this out to us as mortgage advisors, that the problem with this announcement by David Clark, by the government, is that it creates the idea that there might be a solution or a solution's been delivered when it actually hasn't. So they are still struggling with what is on the table from the CCCFA.
Because to look at some of the bullet points can look quite good. I mean, it looks like things are going to be a bit easier for borrowers and that. I mean, so is that really not the case from your point of view?
I think any borrower would be being misled. And that's partly, possibly David Clark's been misguided, misled, or being disingenuous, but the solution has not been delivered on the table. They still have to do a lot of analysis around expenses and around people's budgets. They have taken savings out as an expense, believe it or not. But I think we need to roll back and go back in time to what these changes were intended to do, or what the CCCFA was aiming to do.
So what are the changes, or what are they saying the changes are?
Well, the idea behind it originally was they wanted to stop bad loans being written and to putting families under pressure with expensive interest rates, expensive fees, and loans they really couldn't afford. And it was the money shops that were mainly doing that, payday loans and bad car finance, things like that. The regulations swept up all lending into these changes. Banks were already generally doing responsible lending. I mean, no one in the bank wants to lose their job because they've written a bad loan or several bad loans. And no bank wants to become a 6 o'clock news story about, I'm selling your house because you've defaulted on your loan, or 15, 20, 30, 100 people have defaulted on their loans. That's not happening. Yeah. In fact, if you saw last night's news, the lending is down 34%, but the amount of defaults and the amount of people in trouble has gone down as well. Now they could argue the CCCFA might have done that, but banks have already applied those brakes themselves. They were already, taking a cautious approach to lending. This has taken a sledgehammer to a walnut. And it's the wrong walnut. Right. The one they needed to crack were the money shops, not the banks.
Because it's essentially to try and protect the consumer, really, isn't it? I mean,
absolutely.
So what's the best way to do that?
The way forward is at this point in time, it is challenging. And people really need to look at their expenses, because the banks are going to still be looking at their expenses in detail. They need to control what they're spending. They need to save as much as they can. It's just a difficult time, and it's probably not going to get a lot easier for another year.
Because we're hearing things like, the bank's going back through your statements and looking at every coffee you bought and every bag of lollies or whatever. I mean, is that sort of changing then?
That's probably going to ease back a bit. Right. So they will, not do such a detailed scrape. But from the communication we have had, they're still having to analyse expenses to a reasonable degree.
Right.
They have put forward suggestions that from the UK and from Australia, what they do in terms of how they assess this stuff. But again, the government is not taking that on board enough to actually make some relaxed changes.
Okay.
Because if you look at loan-to-value ratios, interest rate assessments, or the assessment level they check whether you can afford a loan at, mortgage rates as they are now, there are enough brakes on the system without applying even more.
Is the amount you need for a deposit going to change?
Yeah, at the moment, there were some banks who are able to do 10% deposit on existing property. They're all out at the moment. It's all 20% deposit on existing property.
Yeah.
New builds can get away with 10 or 15%, but existing property, all 20% at the moment. It will open up again because the banks are allowed to lend a certain amount of their book at that level, but they've got to be very careful they don't breach Reserve Bank standards or protocols, otherwise they're fined.
And any change for property investors as well?
No easing up whatsoever. It's still challenging. So those, another tranche of interest rate expenses is being applied now in terms of not being able to deduct that anymore this year coming up. So
So it's quite a minefield, really, isn't it? So, I mean,
Yeah.
that's where someone like yourself, as an advisor at Simply Finance, you really can help people negotiate this minefield and do all that work for them on their behalf, can't you?
Yeah, we can. We
Yeah.
do. And that's exactly why we exist and why we enjoy doing our job, because getting a result across the line is really important to us. We're advisors, but we're also guides, mentors, cheerleaders, but also reality checks at times as well. Sometimes it doesn't work out.
If somebody wants to know a bit more about this, really, they should make contact with you, shouldn't they?
Yeah, definitely.
So if you'd like some more information, you can click on the little link at the end of this video, and you'll be able to talk to Jonathan and get some more information about how you can become a borrower or change the borrowing you've currently got if you want to.